Okay, so we have our panel up here. We have Elsa, we have Anna, we have Olaf. No? Come on. I've got a 4-year-old, so that's my world at the moment. All right. Elsa, Ian, Dan, and Damien. So we're going to kick off with you, Elsa. So explain to me a little bit what you do. You have orchestrated these incredible events across London. So, well, where in the world do you start? How do you? London. It's such. We're built for a horse and cart. We're not built for, a modern day. It always amazes me just how London's able to straddle that great history with the modernity of kind of a modern day city.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's one thing that makes my job quite easy. If I'm being brutally honest, that we're in a very unique situation, that we have incredibly iconic, beautiful history, but we're actually a very innovative city as well, and we're also very welcoming and open to different events. And I think it's super important that we stay cutting edge on it. We can't rest on our laurels as a city. Just because we do have a global name doesn't mean that we will keep that spot. So we are, London and Partners is the growth agency really for London. So we look at how we can grow London from a measure of different things. From my point of view, it's about major events. That's the big sporting events that you'll see across the city at Wembley, over to Excel as well. In the cultural space, what can we do to amplify that? Because we have a very diverse population, we need to keep talking to those people in our city to stay relevant, which leads me on to the last pillar, which is esports and gaming, which is like a whole new thing for us as a city. And when we look 5-10 years down the line, we're going to be, the entire workforce is going to be Gen Z, really. So how do we make sure that those decision makers and those people in those seats are being spoken to and do have something that's authentic to them and ways that they can interact with the city to keep them engaged? And
yet, you never want to leave people behind. So you never want people who are in their 60s or 70s or whoever to feel like this isn't their city as well. To feel like, and I think that's so easy to do because as you get older, naturally, there's a tendency to become more myopic and naturally, you go for the things you love, and yet you want the city to be for everyone. Are you involved in any of the half marathons that they put on at all in London?
Personally, in previous roles I was. My background is in the operational delivery of major sporting events, specifically marathons.
Wow.
So I've worked for London Marathon for 3 or 4 years. Now moved over into this more kind of, I suppose, strategic view across the city. But I think if I didn't have that experience being boots on ground and what it means to deliver an event, it wouldn't be as easy for me to do the job that I do now. Marathons are a very special thing, and they'll always hold a place in my heart from an inspiring point of view across all age demographics, really. It's amazing to go out and see these incredible elite runners that are winning Olympic gold medals. They're running on our streets, and then a couple of 100 meters behind, we have our own version of that, and it really filters down into the grassroots, and it's the same route for all, it's the same experience for all, from first thing in the morning to the last runner of the day, and that inspiring of activity is something that really, for me, only events can do. Mm-hmm. It's a very visceral thing to go out onto the streets or into a stadium, into an arena, and share an experience together. And that's all we do now, really, especially post-COVID. We don't care about materialism and buying things off a shelf and what joy does that give us. People want to share experiences with their loved ones, and that's a unique thing for events.
Do you remember my wife worked on the opening ceremony? So she was filming as a director, and she was filming some of the titles for the opening ceremony. So I had tickets for the dress rehearsal, so I went along, which is quite hard because no one explained anything. So you're like, is that Brunel? It looks a bit like Kenneth Branagh, but I'm not entirely sure. So you're watching it in the dark, really, but it was wonderful. And Danny Boyle came out at the start, and I don't know if you could do this now, but he came out at the start and said, look, everyone, I'd really appreciate if none of you filmed this and none of you put it on social media. And it was 2012, so Twitter was probably quite a big thing at the time, and no one did. And I just thought, there's such a respect for that communal experience that I don't know if that's unique to London. I lived here sort of over half my life now. I consider it to be my hometown. I'm very proud of it. But I don't know if I'm just looking at that through rose-tinted glasses or not. Just before we move on, I mean, because obviously you've got different councils, and you've got the City of London, and you've got the Mayor of London. So you've got, the office of the Mayor of London. So you have a lot of departments you have to go to, and we have these incredible, vibrant boroughs that are making a name for themselves. When I first came to London, if you didn't go into town, then you were in a dirty booze around the corner, Whereas now, any of these boroughs have an incredible, vibrant scene to them, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. That kind of, people call it like placemaking. And London's amazing for that. We're just this series of villages. And actually, it's interesting looking at the behaviour of visitors. From a domestic visitor point of view, we're very good at knowing about these villages. So when people come down from Edinburgh or from Manchester, from Glasgow, wherever it may be, they're like, yeah, I know I need to go to Greenwich, or I need to go to Richmond, or I need to go up to Islington. But actually, when you look at an international visitor, they do still stay quite central around Westminster, and they go to Piccadilly Circus. And yeah, those things are great. But I think we're taking it on as our responsibility to make sure that everyone knows about these villages and these amazing places that are popping up, like Battersea Power Station recently, and XL moving forwards in this kind of consumer space as well as business space. So that is very unique to London. And I place utmost importance on that when thinking about events in that context. So how can we use events to amplify these places that aren't just Westminster?
No, sure.
No slight on Westminster.
The history that's attached to so many of them as well. When people come to London, I used to live in Camden for like 12 years, and when people come and visit or ask for things to do, I always just say, walk to the top of Primrose Hill. And the amount of, especially Americans, go, what? And then they go up, and there's some lovely little kind of restaurants and stuff. But that's almost like the reward after you walk to the top. You walk to the top, you get the best view of London, and so few people go up there to actually look at it. Let's move on now to creating event spaces. Ian and Dan co-founded Madfest. I mean, tell us exactly what that is, how you founded it, where you started, and how you transform Shoreditch, which, that's no mean feat, into a mini city. Quite a long question, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a goodie. We do this all the time, so we love talking about this. So we, when we started, we knew each other. We worked together previously, and we were good friends. And we kind of thought, in our personal life, we love going to fun events. We love going to music gigs. We like going to festivals. And we think that, everybody is very, very similar. Even if they're just in a business environment, they are a person, and they love doing things outside of their business, and they like the experience, meeting people, having lovely conversations with people, and having, being in a space that's genuinely inspiring. So we thought, why don't we create an event that is a business event, but it feels like you're going to Glastonbury, but it's full of 15,000 business people that are all quite relaxed.
I'm learning a lot about this. It's B2B, but making it like B2C.
Exactly right, yeah. Making it like something you would do. Such a fast learner. Making it something you would do at the weekend.
I'm so sorry.
And well remembered. Something you would do at the weekend, but doing business in it. And because of the vibe and the feel of the show, people are relaxed, and they work out whether they trust each other, whether they want to be friendly to that person, just like we do in our personal lives. That's what we try and create.
Just to pick up, back in 2018, Ian and I were working on some shows, and to be honest, we lost the love for it. So we did.
Why is that? Why do you think that was?
Just everything had become a bit formulaic and boring, and people were telling us they wanted something different. But I don't think the event organisers were willing to do that. I mean, I think, at that time we did the only sensible thing, and we quit our jobs, told our wives, raided the piggy banks, and had some harebrained scheme to do our own thing. So, but I think when you're a startup, you're always looking for a point of differentiation, right? So it felt like, to us, there was an opportunity of being precisely the opposite of everything else that was on the market at the time. So as Ian says, creating something that felt more like a music festival, thinking of moments where people can come together, they can drink, they can have fun, they can see a brand activation, whatever it may be. We wanted to do something that felt, what we feel is a vibrant industry, marketing, advertising. That's the kind of thing that people expect. London's a great city. It's a hub of advertising agencies, etc. So why haven't we got an event that caters for people who work in the city, that reflects the vibrancy of London? And that's kind of what it
It's
all
funny
came
though.
about.
It's like, and sort of, this is not my world, but there are so many crossovers in that you've got to, you always need a CEO who's willing to take chances and willing to delegate and trust, right? So you always need someone that buys into that creative vision. Because quite often, like you said, when you get bored of the industry, you just think sometimes you almost get there and then there's always someone that goes, actually, you know what, there's a sort of risk-averse nature, right? Because it is their money after all, and they want to spend it, and they want to spend it in the right way. How do you turn Shoreditch into a whereabouts in Shoreditch do you even start?
It's a really heavy lift. It's a really heavy lift. So the show is about a quarter of a square mile, and it takes all of the estate that is owned by the old Truman Brewery.
Okay.
And that estate is a wonderful place, a magical place, a very mixed bag. It requires building everything from the ground up. When we're not there, there's a nightclub.
A couple of car parks,
some squares, some buildings that maybe could do with a little bit of updating and,
a lot
and
of pigeons.
what have you.
Yeah.
So yeah, our team come in and they will spend about a week transforming this place. And we build a beach on Brick Lane. We build a mad marquee just across from the beach. We create this incredible square. We love working with the local businesses. We don't put any pressure on them. Madfest comes to town and they have 15,000 people wandering past
Brick Lane, amazing.
for a few days, which is great for them and it works well for us. It
Yeah.
takes some pressure off us in terms of catering and what have you. But it is there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But that is the only, that's sort of, and I mean sustainable with a small s, but that way of doing something big but also supporting local businesses that might not be like official partners, but definitely collaborators is so important in the city, I think, don't you?
Yeah, we were actually touching on this just backstage. We were examining the benefits and the disbenefits of an event like Madfest going into a very built-up area and how businesses can interact with that. And in my view, it's crucial. You have to. And I think you can look a bit left behind if you're a business that's sat in this space. You're like, oh, well, I'm just going to reject this event going here. And you can't do that. Yeah, of course, there are some negative things about events. Of course there are. Maybe you can talk about displacement of otherwise visitors that would otherwise be there. But actually, if you can collaborate with an event from a business point of view in an authentic and meaningful way and do something really quite special, which I think brands are really changing now. It's no longer, you can't just stick your logo up and be done with it and hand out a lanyard.
Yeah.
Any experience that a brand creates at an event has to be done in a really meaningful way. I think the Olympics did this very well in Paris. You can't just buy your way into the Olympics. You have to do something meaningful with your brand for the audience there.
And I think that distinctive event experience that we have at Madfest, that's actually encouraged brands to get involved and activate at the show itself. So, we work with Diageo, we work with Havana Club, we work with Dishoom, lots of sort of food and drink brands to sort of get, cans into hands, essentially becoming a sort of like a sampling platform as well as an event, which is interesting for us because all of that stuff adds to the experience. It's a different revenue stream as well. So it's a kind of like a collaborative effort of all the official stuff, all the build that goes into making that show, all the brand activations that take place, and then working with the retailers, the coffee shops, etc., to come up with something that feels like a bit of a community.
Well, I want to talk about immersive events. Damien, you head up live and immersive events at Excel. So, I mean, your venue experience is basically your topic. So where do you start with that great shell, that great space? Because you've got a big space there. We've done X Factor several times down there. Yep. Been to like boat shows with my dad there. There's so much you can do in that space.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's 125,000 square meters, and we run 440 events a year. So at the moment we're running, Travel Market, 100,000 people. You get a tube strike that's happening last week. Now it's not happening, great, so it'll be 100,000 people. You get a tube strike. You decimate that attendance through nothing you can do about it. But I think to give you one specific example would be the Formula E World Championship, which is the electric equivalent of Formula One. So we sat down with them, I think in 2018, and I think it's really important to understand the different types of people in events, because there's different types of people in events in this room. And you've got your creatives and you've got your mavericks. And they're the ones in the corner shaking the jar of wasps going, make it go quicker, make it go faster. And they want to put a 180 mile an hour race car up a ramp, through a hall with 20,000 people in it, down a ramp and round XL. And you come out of that meeting, it's like, yeah, we're going to do this, it's great. Then you need to get the next meeting going, which is all the really sensible people who sit there and go, you want to do what? How fast? And then they ask really great questions that, you know, the wasp shakers don't want to answer. And they're like, well, yeah. And then they come back and then they go, okay, it's possible. So then you get the wasp shakers, the sensible people in the room, and if they can all agree, then you get the money people, which is the CEO and the CFO and all the people that, and then they listen to the sensible people. They don't listen to the wasp shakers. And then all of a sudden, you end up with something remarkable, which is putting cars through a hall at 180 miles an hour. And for me, probably one of the most, I guess, emotional moments was we had to close for COVID, as everyone did, and you suddenly been part of this industry that is so passionate, is about bringing people together. And for so long, you just assumed it would go on forever. And then all of a sudden, it's not, right? Am I going to have a job? Are we going to be in stadiums? Are we going to do this again? And we became very publicly the Nightingale Hospital, and 4,000 beds set up, and your venue is turned into a temporary hospital. Then it becomes a vaccination centre. Then the first event we run back after that was the Formula E Championship. And I think I had a cotton bud stuffed up my nose probably about 26 times in a week, because we were a COVID secure environment. And everyone, 3,000 was cotton bud every morning and every night. But it was worth it, because you just suddenly saw your venue become this racetrack where it had been a hospital, it had been a vaccination centre. And you realise that the art of possible is all of these people that come together, whether they're health and safety, whether they're riggers, whether they're the wasp shakers, all of the different things. But you can only do that if you have that expertise and you rely on those people that bring these events together.
Great. Let's take a look at the art of the possible.
Go, 5 lines on then. Wrap 15 of the ABB FIA Formula World Championship is underway. And Jake Dennis comes across the line, and he becomes the ABB FIA Formula E World Champion of Season 9 here in London. What a drive from Jake Dennis.
Wow. I was in the XL. What? Can we backtrack? How involved were you about turning it into the hospital? Were you did they, I mean, how hands-on are you with that?
I mean, me personally, it was very much led at our C-suite level at the time, and our operational teams, because they wanted the absolute minimal core, but the thousands of Zoom calls that we were all part of, and the work that was needed to be done to be able to put the oxygen in and everything else. But also, at the time, we kind of, humans were programmed to forget the bad memories, aren't we? So we've got we got this thing where we don't really remember how long it was and everything. But at the time, you're talking about your employees putting themselves in harm's way. There was no vaccine. People were dying with this thing, and you're saying, well, can you smash a hole through that wall and run 3 miles of copper pipes and things, and can we work with the army and do this? You look back on it, and you don't really want to look back on it too much, because it was too horrible.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. And how do you foster the collaboration between the different I mean, I don't know who the stakeholders are, so who are the stakeholders in Excel, and how does that sort of work? How does that manifest itself?
So we've got an Excel management team that UK-based business, and we run the entire business, and we are owned by Abu Dhabi. So we're owned by our partner companies, parent companies, Modon. And I think that from our perspective, We've just invested £300 million in our Phase 3 extension. We've just invested £50 million in turning our waterfront into an immersive entertainment district, running things like the Formula One exhibitions, the Friends experience, soon to be running the Elvis Evolution experience. So, that investment into East London, into the Royal Docks, is hugely important, and that's from really understanding events and building out into that industry.
Yeah, is that Newham?
Yeah.
Newhamshire Council, right. So I mean, it's not one of the wealthier councils,
not
wealthier
at
areas
all.
in London. So that level of investment in there is like hugely important then for the local economy.
Yeah, and it's really important as a business that you're good neighbours and that you give back. We're involved in a range of different local charities, and how we then give tickets and give social mobility to those different age groups. A great example is Formula E, where they have a €25,000 purse every year that they go to different cities and look at the most sort of rewarding charities. And we work with a food bank whose a van which literally transports all the money to the food to the most needed people wasn't ULEZ compliant. So the €25,000 bought an electric van for them, which is probably the most clear representation of how you give back to a community.
Yeah, it's so important as well. That footprint's so important, isn't it? Ian, you've drawn the short straw on health and safety.
Good luck.
Imagine neither of you two are well equipped to talk about health and safety. Don't worry. So, okay, how important, how hard, I looked at this question when I sat down. I went, really? Do we have to ask about health and safety? Health and safety is massively important.
Yeah, it's hugely important. I mean, we've got 15,000 people in a quarter of a square mile little mini city we've built for 3 days. But I think we take a really pragmatic view on it. I mean, Dan and I don't build the stages. We don't know how to use AV.
I'm guessing that's quite a good thing.
Yeah, it's a really good thing from a health and safety perspective. There's nothing else. As with our AV teams or other teams, Damien was talking about it earlier, lots of different people involved. We work with an incredible business called Horner Sallis. They come in, they draw up this enormous plan. They go through it all with the venue, all the local councils involved in the process, because we've probably closed down half their streets for the vast amount of stuff we need to bring in. And they run that process for us. And then what they do for us as a business is they sit us down and they make us nod that we understand, and they walk us through it all. And then they create this pathway at the show where everybody knows what to do if this happens. And then there's a group of us, 3 or 4 of us, that would ultimately make a decision, but it's all guided by them. So they take away a lot of pain, and they make sure that we're operating professionally, safely, and looking after everybody that's with us.
Anyone want to add anything to that? What, you don't want to jump in on the health and safety pants? Oh,
Come
man.
on, Dan.
Dan, people are expecting sort of more and more from experiences now, especially the immersive experiences, I think. So what strategies do you use to kind of, so when people come back, they're excited?
Yeah, okay, good question. So I think, when Damien does experiences, probably they're super high tech and lots of immersive technologies go into them. We do a bit of that, but I think at MadFest it's more about creating a vibe. What we want to do is create somewhere where it's really, really lively, where people want to be, where people lose their inhibitions, all of that sort of stuff. So I think, our strategy, if you like, is to partner with everybody under the sun and think of MadFest as a bit of a platform. If you want to run a party with us, that's great. If you want to do a drinks activation, that's brilliant. Run a pop-up restaurant. All of those things combine and add to the overall experience. So I think just being collaborative in your outlook is probably going to serve you pretty well.
What do you think was the best inspiration for you when you, like you said, your festival goers, you love the experience? What for you, did you go somewhere, anywhere in the world and went, wow, this is, I mean, I suppose you've borrowed elements from different places or taken inspiration from different, like whether it's Glastonbury or Latitude or further afield or any of the many festivals we have here.
Probably I'm 41, so I haven't been to too many festivals recently. I also have a 3-year-old, so I'm well versed in Frozen and all of that sort of stuff as well. But I think it was more like seeing the stuff that I really didn't want to be at, and that inspired us to think more creatively about what we could do in terms of the experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not normally that guy, but what didn't you want to be at?
What's that?
I said, I'm not normally that kind of guy, but what didn't you want to be at? What did you see and went, that's not for me?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the one thing that we really didn't like was, if you wandered into an event and essentially, wherever that event may be, and then you wandered into that venue the following week, and really all that had changed were the logos and the people that were in there.
Yeah.
So we didn't like that very formulaic thing. So at Madfest, there are no exhibition booths. There are pagodas. There are beach huts. There are picnic tables. There are activations going on that sort of seem a little bit more what you would see in normal life, and a little bit more welcoming.
Yeah.
And we just like to, every year, I suppose we focus on being familiar but different. Because when things don't change, that's when events crumble. That's when they lose their market standing. That's when they start to deteriorate. So we always want to do something different. And we are not scared of throwing all of the balls in the air.
Yeah. And just making stuff that people want, right? Rather than trying to make them want stuff that they don't want.
Yes.
I think there's a really, really sound logic for that, right? If people are saying that they want something that's vibrant, that's different, that is bright and buzzy, give them that. People talk about these ideas like the experience economy, return on experience. Maybe that's just an attempt to add some kind of metric and quantify these sorts of things. But to me, it just seemed like second nature to say, look, okay, we want something that is colourful and different, and there's a gap in the market, so why don't we do it?
I think from an experience point of view on a major sporting event, it's very, very similar. When you're starting to talk about new markets and making sure there's something for everybody, it's important that sporting rights holders or any event rights holder does the same, I think. We've been working with Major League Baseball for the last 3 years, established in the London Stadium at the Olympic Park. It's fantastic. They've got a captive audience there. They've sold out every day for the last few years.
Yeah.
The people are buying the tickets, they want to be there. But actually, Major League Baseball moving over to London, for them, as a rights holder, was all about finding a new market. So that's not just about 90,000 people in a stadium. There's so many more ways that London can actually talk to people. So we worked with them to create a fan zone on Trafalgar Square.
Yeah.
So you've sold your tickets to people that are probably already fans at London Stadium, but actually how can you create maybe a more of a surprise and delight moment at Trafalgar Square? How can you have batting cages for kids to play? And because kids don't want to just sit in a stadium and watch a game for
especially
a couple of
baseball.
hours.
Baseball's a lot like cricket. That's a long. It's a big ask.
Yeah, totally. But actually, if you put them in a batting cage or let them have photo opportunities, then you're finding a new market in a fun way, and that will appeal to different people. So it's where we come in as a city to say, okay, you want to create a fan zone. Let's really think about this. Let's think about why you want a fan zone, and where that might be best for you. Mm-hmm. Because going back to this idea of placemaking in the villages across London, some villages will be better set up for that than others.
Sure. I love the immersive stuff. You guys into that? I mean, the amount of things I've been to, 3 things. Well, there's a company called Yumi Bum Bum Train. Have you guys ever taken Yumi Bum Bum Train? Anyone here? It's insane. So you're basically the central character in a walk-through, immersive theatrical experience. All the scenes, set pieces, last 2 minutes maybe, and then you're through and the next person's coming through. It's your singular experience. So you're the central character in everything you go through. You're a bank robber. You are an American football coach. You are on a sushi table. You are on a luggage rack. It's right? Those guys are just next level, aren't they?
Yeah, amazing.
And they're run by like these two, and they've got no. And what I love about them, they've got no. They've got no appetite for profit whatsoever. They just do it every year, and they barely break even. The other two that I urge you to check out are the the gunpowder plot, which is great this time of year at London, the Tower of London. They've done a great job. Tom Felton plays Guy Fawkes. It's this really kind of virtual reality immersive thing. And then lastly, it's a bit further out of town, but we went last year to Lapland, UK. I don't know if you guys have done that. You need to get down to Lapland, UK. I tell you what, your kids are going to love it. But because it's easy to get Christmas wrong, right? It can, can be very, very naff. But they've sort of taken over a forest in the middle of nowhere, and it's all, and they've done it in a very sustainable way, which brings me on to you, Elsa, because how on earth do you have a city the size of London and have that ambition of net zero? It's so difficult it's so important to have it, but it's so difficult to make it.
Yeah, so I think the Mayor of London's ambition is to be net zero by 2030 and waste-free by 2050. So very ambitious, really important. And I know that from an event planner point of view, so many of you guys will want that to be part of your programme and want that to be part of your event. So how can we help that as a city? From my side, from the major events point of view, I think we need to be authentic in the events that we're trying to deliver while we're here to support that narrative. Formula E, really good example of that. That is a sustainable event in what they do, and they are leading the way in ensuring that the way they deliver the event from an operational point of view backs up the actual race itself. Can also look at how we use London in terms of the venues that we have, the spaces that we have. We are incredibly fortunate to have a wealth of green spaces. How can we use those to support that green, sustainable narrative about well-being as well? So events should drive well-being, and being outside is a really big part of that. So how can we work with our rural parks and with our green spaces to use them as part of the programming too?
Brilliant. Damien, what about you? Specific strategies or initiatives? Can you explain what the new Green Deal is and how you guys are part of that?
The new Green Deal? No.
No, good. Me neither.
I can tell
I was
you.
asked to ask you about it, but no. Anyone else?
I can tell you're a carbon neutral venue, and we've got the UK's largest wormery, where all of our waste goes into. I mean, it sounds lovely, but it's this big tank underneath in our car park. But we're on 100% renewable energy. All of those really, really important things, and we are targeting net zero by 2030. So, there's a lot of ambition, there's a lot with it, and I think a lot of businesses, playing catch up, and we got into it probably, I think, about 7 or 8 years ago in a meaningful way, and it is a really important aspect of what we do, but with such a massive venue, it's very, very hard to retrofit something that's 24 years old, and so how do you then work on these initiatives? It's really important.
How do you do it? I mean, that's so hard to. So it's such an easy thing to say, but 2030 is going to be here like tomorrow, not literally, obviously, but you know what I mean. And what about what's waste zero? How do you make something waste zero?
I'm not qualified enough to answer that question.
No, I'm definitely not. Don't think. We were talking about getting the right people in the room. We need
what
that
we've learned
ESG
is that it's
manager.
not Damien and I.
Ian, let's talk about large events and visit economy and how that can impact the city and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose from our perspective, people coming into Shoreditch and being part of our event has a natural sort of bonus for everything that's going on in Shoreditch. And getting back to the point I think Dan was really making earlier is that we're very open to work with people. We don't think that everything that comes in and around MadFest should necessarily just benefit us. We don't want to take every single penny out of Shoreditch while MadFest is in town. That's not what we're about. What we want to do is create this vibrant thing that benefits that sort of probably half a square mile maybe around us, where everybody thinks, great news, it's the first week of July, MadFest is here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And that's just a nice thing, isn't it? That we bring a little bit of that to Shoreditch at the time. The bigger stuff we do, and the stuff that really matters to us and where we can make a difference is we work with businesses like DigiLearning. We work with Brixton Finishing School. We create a whole program called Flourish, where we we bring 18 to 21-year-olds who maybe have had a fairly tricky kick-off in life, and to be absolutely frank with you, they don't stand a chance of getting into the marketing and advertising world off their own bat. And we bring them into the show and we create programs for them and we give them opportunity. Apprenticeships have come from it, jobs have come from it. It makes us feel great. We don't charge anybody anything for it. We just want to do something that makes us feel as though we're giving something back in our world.
Yeah, and it's not just London. We're taking MadFest to Manchester, and I'm sure a location you know well, the old Granada Studios site with the Rovers return. You know, that whole area is called St. John's. It's being redeveloped as a creative community. Soho House are opening there. You know, there's large venues, there's agencies, etc. And I think, you know, that you can, I guess, boil it down to two things. You've got the economic impact of the things that you can do. You can boost local businesses, hotels like this one, etc. But as Ian said, there's also a social angle to everything that we do. And we're very, very keen to provide opportunities whereby people can come and pitch brands, you know, connect with future employers, etc. So I think both those things, hand in hand, are really important.
It's been really interesting speaking to all four of you. Thank you so much. I've probably been to a lot of your events, you know, and it's just fascinating to hear how you work within this like wonderful, complex, mixed-up kind of city of ours. That's just I genuinely love it. Like you touched on the green spaces, and for me, it's my favourite capital city in the world. And I would say that because I live here, but at the same time, you know, it's something that's always constantly evolving, and it's so important. Listen, before we finish today, I think we've got some. If anyone's got some questions, because it would be a shame not to hear from you.
I'm here on the side.
Felicia's on the side. Lovely.
We've been using the app. You've been very good at using the app. Thank you so much. We've had so many questions, but we're tight on time. Who could blame us? It's been fantastic. I'm going to do two, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Excellent. So the top voted question after the first one was actually about MadFest, saying, really want to get in, but it's so tight, where are you going next? And then you just answer the question. Off to Manchester, is that right?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Second question here that had the next best votes was Birmingham will be hosting the Invictus Games 2027 off the back of the Commonwealth Games. How is London staying competitive among smaller, dynamic cities? So I think that might be for you, Alison.
Yeah, that sounds like a me question. That's a really tough one, and it is what makes it's the challenging part of my job. The easy part is that we have a great product to work with. The challenging part is that we are constantly competed with, and so we should be. I would say, firstly, I think there's enough to go around. You only have to look at an events calendar in one city to see that it's overflowing. When you start to look at every other city as well, it's important that things move. And I think it's important that events go to other cities, go to other nations, and then maybe come back to London. And they bring a whole new market with them. So, yes, we need to stay competitive. Yes, we need to also make sure that we are continually evolving, a bit like we talked about at the beginning, to make sure that the events that we are hosting are relevant. London 2012 was phenomenal. And we are continuing to deliver mega events next year. We have the Women's Rugby World Cup. It's a UK bid. London's hosting the final. In 2028, we're seeing the Euros. Again, UK bid, and London's hosting the final. And I think that trend, actually, we're going to start to see more of that. Events are incredibly expensive to deliver. I don't need to be telling you that. So actually, how can we work as a nation to put the UK first, keeping London very much in the mix? And yeah, we're very lucky. We have, I think, 4 of the biggest stadiums in the UK are in London. So we probably will always have the competitive angle from a scale point of view, I suppose. But let's play on the strength of different cities and create the point of difference between us too.
We were very, so I'm sort of work for Radio 2, but they're very collaborative and very close. So when we sit down and have meetings about where we go, we just started Radio 2 in the Park, which has been going for the last 2 years now. And it's a phenomenal success. Now, it used to be in Hyde Park, and it was great. But you don't need, Hyde Park doesn't need us. And if you're a nation, especially over the, you're a BBC broadcaster, if you're a nation's broadcaster, my argument was Manchester doesn't need us, Birmingham doesn't need us, Glasgow doesn't need us, Edinburgh doesn't need us. You need to be in the smallest city or the biggest town. So the last 2 years we've done Leicester and Preston. And it's just been and it's been phenomenal. Sold out over 38,000 per day for 2 days. so long as the town's got a big enough park, you can handle it. And it's been so great to get out and actually get out of London. Like you said, we need to complement each other rather
Yeah,
than...
quite right. Yeah.
Sorry, Felicia, all right.
No, all good. Thank you very much. And then I'm just going to land here. I've had a lot of questions in that talk about the word immersive in many, many different ways. Some are questioning, should we be doing VR headsets at an in-person event that take you into a virtual reality world or not? And then the top voted question here said, in the world of the Willy Wonka experience in Glasgow, you remember then, what is the key thing to create a successful immersive experience? So I think the question's asking what boundaries should we be pushing and AI and all of that. So Ian, Dan, Damien, have
more experience.
I'll take that one happily. So Dermot, you went to Gunpowder Plot. The company Layered Reality. They do that, they do War of the Worlds, and they're doing Elvis with us. So we spent a lot of time working with them to really understand if you're going to take such a incredible name such as Elvis, right? What are you going to do with it? Right? We see ABBA Voyage. We it's been a phenomenal success, and I can't reveal all their plans, but having sat and looked through the hours and hours and hours and their production and everything, it is going to break new ground in that space. It will. They are great custodians of such a prestigious name. For War of the Worlds, I think they got 2,800 reviews and there's 4.8 stars over 5 years. I looked for 1,000 of them to see whether any of them are fake. So you absolutely have to have great quality people. You need to have the right operational people, the right creative people, and the right marketing people. Because if you've got an event like Willy Wonka, for example, was never trust an AI picture, right? And then the reality was terrible because there was no production values. The operationally, it was terrible. Marketing-wise, I think they probably did quite a good job. Lots of people turned up and took a terrible picture. But you need all those elements. And then you have to then take people beyond. Whether that's a VR headset, but it needs to be really good. But you need to surprise people. You need to delight people. You need to make people, get something that they weren't expecting. And when they come away, that these, every single family that have invested to go, this is a birthday, a day out, this is important. You need to be really, really responsible with their leisure spend and give them something they come away and go, wow, that was great, mum, dad, or date night, whatever it is, because then they're going to have a confidence in doing more of those things. And, there's no magic ingredient, but that's some of the formula.
Passion, I think, as well. Like I've done a lot of interviews with the people. When you get behind the candelabra and you actually see the people running it, and that, whether it's a creative director or a CEO or whoever, but just having someone's their genuine passion. I mean, with the Gunpowder Plot, they had like historians involved and everything. So it was as accurate as it possibly could be.
Yeah, the research they did, you only get that end product if they say so true to that story, and then wrap the immersive experience around what the original story was. Yeah. That's really important.
There's a moment when you're in a boat going down the Thames on the night of the Gunpowder Plot, and I was sat there going, I could just do this for an hour. Just sit here and just look at the Thames for an hour. What about you guys? An answer to that question? You want to pick up at all or not?
The Willy Wonka thing is like every event organiser's worst nightmare, right? So you've promised the world it's going to be magical, mystical, fantastic. Sales probably haven't been as good as you'd hoped. You've cut down on the production values, and lo and behold, it's all over social media, and you're in a shitstorm. So that's not great. I think for us, it bizarrely maybe boils down to having a really, really strong sort of commercial vision for what you do. Okay, because without cash coming into the business, there's no production. And the production standards slip. So I think what we try to do, this is Ian's area of the business, is
I suppose we were lucky because we weren't under massive pressures. We didn't have proper shareholders and stuff. But when we set this up, our real immersive experience thing was we didn't care whether we made any money for the first 3 years. We just focused on the brand. If you'd asked either of us, have you made any money this year? We wouldn't know. We paid ourselves a little bit of money so we could keep going. But we didn't know. And the biggest thing for us was don't cut corners, make it brilliant, do what you say you're going to do, spend a bit more money than you want to spend, and make it wonderful for people. And that's almost our immersive thing that got us going. And then mercifully, we started to make some money a few years back.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this panel.
Thanks, everyone. I think that's all we got. Felicity, any more, or is that all we've got time for?
You finished. You're done.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, panel.
Thanks very much.
Danny and Damien, thank you so much. As our esteemed panelists say goodbye, let's take a look at how London and partners have truly transformed this city. Take a look.
From glory hunters to winter wonders, we are not your average punters. You must dive a little deeper. Past the half pipes, art types, make the moment last nights. Now go discover, inspire others, do it loud and show your colours. The city waits. Come friends and loved ones. This is it. This is London.
That's very snazzy. Well done, Elsa. Thank you. One more time for our panel. Thank you, everyone. It's great.